Chapter 7 draws the first section of Acts to a conclusion. In the 3 years since that special Pentecost, the church has been rapidly growing. The Jesus movement is booming. But the temple authorities don't like this. This coexistence doesn't work for them anymore. In chapter 6, they've arrested Stephen, and now they are about to interrogate him. They are accusing him of blasphemy, speaking badly against Moses, and speaking badly against the temple. Now, Stephen could have tried to avoid the conflict. He could have tiptoed around the issues. But instead he gives this great speech, speaking of how the history of the Jewish people began with Abraham. He talks about Joseph. He talks about Moses. He talks about the prophets. He gives the overarching story right up until the point of Jesus where they are today. As he tells his story, he speaks about those who stood against God's people, about how with Joseph, his brothers deceived him, about how with Moses, Aaron and people rebelled against God's chosen person, his leader, about how the prophets who were speaking God's word were again condemned by the people. As he's saying these things, Stephen begins to speak about how the leaders there in Jerusalem were also speaking against the person God had chosen, Jesus. They had joined him in what their ancestors had done many years earlier and were speaking against the person God had chosen. Stephen is being accused of blasphemy, but he turns this conversation back toward his accusers and accuses them right back at being blasphemous. Many great stories contain powerful speeches, and Stephen's speech is powerful. But what I find intriguing about the story is as he's given this speech, nobody comes to his defense. Where were the other disciples? Perhaps they were on the other side of town, or perhaps they just melt into the audience. Stephen is left all alone giving this speech. And as his speech comes to a conclusion, the people go crazy. They begin to yell. They begin to tear their clothes. They begin to cover their ears as they swarm around Stephen and drag him out of the city to stone him to death. They pick up stones and stone him to death. And as this is happening, Stephen, there on his knees, looks up to heaven. He sees Jesus at the right-hand side of the Father, and he has complete peace. And he prays, "Don't let this sin be marked against these people." Now that is a revolutionary prayer of grace. Sometimes standing up for what is right can be difficult. You can find yourself all alone. You can find yourself a marked man. I hope I'd had the boldness of Stephen to speak out for what was right. But there, as he's being pelted with stones, he has a sense of God's peace, a bigger picture of eternity. And there's a reassurance here that even when we stand up for what is right, even when it becomes difficult, that God will meet us, that God will give us a peace, that in him we have